Hello,
Hello, hello, and
hello.
welcome back to What
What the
the
Deaf?
Deaf podcast.
We are so excited to be back for a new episode. And one thing I noticed is we keep on using a term, and I want to clarify for you guys before we dive in to a new topic. So the term is hearing.
Hearing.
Hearing. We often use that term without really explaining it to you guys. So, Carly, do you want to explain it a little bit more what that means?
Sure. When you guys started submitting your questions, I noticed that you guys used the word non deaf. And in the deaf community, we label those who have the capability of hearing, who are not deaf, as a hearing person. And I know that sometimes I have to remind myself that in your world, you guys don't exactly label yourself as, hi, I'm a hearing person. While we see that and we always say those hearing people. And I know that in our previous episodes, in this episode, we'll use that terminology. So keep in the back of your head that it's a terminology that we use to label people who have the capability of hearing. So hearing people.
So, we just wanted to clarify that. So, now looking back on our previous episode, I did some soul searching and a little bit of unpacking. And I realized,
And I was going to ask you the same thing. I remember in the last episode, we were talking about how one of your good friends, who is now one of my good friends, is learning sign language. And plus, your dad is learning sign language. And they used that reason because I was moving to California. And now that I'm in the picture. So it made me wonder, while you were growing up, all your friendships that you've had, plus the friendship with your friend and your dad, they didn't learn sign language for you, but in your eyes, they learned sign language for me. So I wonder, how does that make you feel? And does it influence your perspective in general as being a deaf person? And for those people who don't actually learn sign language for you before, how does that make you feel?
well, I never really thought about it until I was looking back and we were editing our previous episode that it hit me how natural it was for me to say, yeah, my friends didn't sign, but they learned sign language for you. And how deeply rooted that phrase is for me because growing up, I my priority language was speaking. So I spoke most of my life, even though I did take sign language in school and it was mostly school related. And I signed with some friends here and there. But outside of that, with my family, my primary language was spoken English. And that was just within me growing up to channel that side of my deaf identity and to accommodate hearing people. So I never really gave them the option for them to say, hey, I should just learn for Sarah because I already decided that I would be the one to accommodate for them. And it wasn't until I went to Gallaudet University and found my true deaf identity and came up with a lot of realization that sign language is my main language. It's what makes me feel free. And my parents finally met you and realized you can't give them that option that I could. They don't have a choice with you. You don't speak. You can't learn to hear. So they had to make a decision to accommodate you. While me, I gave them that choice right there and then of me speaking. And so they just dropped in and didn't think it was important to sign. And sometimes I forget that I'm deaf, and sometimes they forget that I'm deaf. So it was a habit of talking in that environment. And it wasn't until I met you that I realized, oh, they learned for you and not for me. And again, it's not in a negative way. It's just something that I realized. And in my upbringing, I was just going with the flow for that.
I'm curious. Now that you've met me and you've really started to get ingrained with your deaf identity, right? Does that influence you with people that you meet now? Do you give them the option and let them choose the easiest way to communicate with you? Or do you make them learn sign language now?
I think it's more of an acknowledgement that I have to let them know that I need the accommodation, that they need to learn ASL. I used to say that I wanted people to learn for me, but I never really followed through with it. But now with my current unpacking and my current identity, I realize no, it's important of them to learn sign language. And I'm breaking that mold of my past upbringing. And I'm so used to being out of my comfort zone to accommodate them. But now I need to say, like, hey, no, you need to learn. Even though I can speak and talk, it doesn't matter. It should not be the reason why people drop and don't sign.
And that changes your perspective of who's actually your true friend and who's really, really important in your life rather than those who just say, hey, and just leave it at that. So it's just very interesting to watch that perspective and your thought process after acknowledging that. It's very powerful, I think.
Yeah, and the biggest thing was our discussion about it because when you decided to move to California, we did have a heart to heart, a real deep talk because most of my friends don't sign. And you didn't want that responsibility to be put on me. And just like you said in the previous episode and the first episode, who was going to step up to the plate and learn sign language? And even though they didn't learn from me, I'm so grateful they learned now. It's never too late. My dad and my other friends decided to take classes on their own without me even having to tell them to do it. So I decided to pick up the positive side of the stick. Just a little backstory on the magic stick. In general, in the world, you have a stick. One side is negative, one side is positive. You can decide which side you want to look at and grab. If you focus on all the negative, it will drop the stick and you'll be in that hole. You decide, no, I want to focus on the positive and look at the positive side on everything. So I'm just grateful that my family and my friends decided to pick up sign language now. And with me and you together, my identity is stronger and I'm more open to having that dialogue with them that even though I can hear and talk, that does not mean that they should just drop everything and not sign.
That's beautifully said. So that leads me to the question that we're actually going to be discussing today. And before we dive into that question, I just want to remind those listeners that we are only two women in this big, beautiful deaf community. And so, what and how we answer the question may not be everyone else's answer or something that they agree with. Because again, everyone has their own journey, their childhood, their backstory, their upbringing is so different from everyone's. And nobody is the same within our community. And so, however, I answer this question, you may agree or disagree or see it in a different lens. And that's perfectly fine as long as everybody has empathy and keeps in mind that this is Carly's story and this is Sarah's story. And we're answering in our own perspectives and our own experiences and how that impact us as a person. But overall, we're part of that deaf community, and hopefully, we are capable of having this beautiful and healthy discussion.
Yeah, we're ready for the questions. While Carly is pulling up the question she wants to ask, I will also say we would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your questions. You can email us at questions@whatthedeaf.com. We love to hear your stories too.
Okay, so this person's question is pretty long, and I think it's really important to make sure that everything is stated. So, this person's question is I just recently watched the show Deaf U on Netflix, and I learned about the different ways to sign, different backgrounds, and different histories, different perspectives on how to be deaf or what's the correct way to be deaf. In what ways would you love to create more acceptance and understanding within your own community? Do you feel that the next step is about answering the question, what is the right way to be deaf? Or do you feel it is more about creating an environment that celebrates the only right way to be deaf, which is to be you? You as Sarah, or me as Carly, and people as their own individuals.
Wow, that's a beautiful question with a lot of layers to it. Like I said before, there's not one right way to be deaf. Our community itself is so beautiful, and many people want to maintain that value of language, of the deaf identity, of the community, which is wonderful. But with that being said, sometimes me as Sarah, I depending on different things I do, like, for example, an audition for a TV show or for a film, and they'll ask for a deaf or non-deaf role. I do analyze myself. Do I speak? Do I sign? Do I SimCom? And for those of you who don't know what SimComming is, it's when you talk and sign at the same time. And I want to do right by me, Sarah, but I also don't want to offend or minimize my deaf community or get them mad at me for deciding to audition in a specific way. So, one thing I noticed is many people are quick to judge sometimes. And not only in the deaf community, but just in general, people are quick to judge without really thinking about that person's history and how they were raised and who they are. So sometimes I have to, or I'm so insecure. Do I speak? Do I sign? What is right by me? And at the end of the day, I want to be authentic to myself. But at the same time, I want to be respectful to my community that I'm hugely a part of. And that's one thing I've tried to find that balance.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And I say that because I come from a very strong deaf family. My parents are deaf, my mother's grandparents are deaf, and so I am third generation deaf within my mom's side of the family. On my dad's side, I'm second generation. So I see the transitions changing over time, especially with technology and the access to technology. And because of that, it really alters people's perspective of deaf culture. And that really changes our values within our culture. So for example, my grandparents during their time, they didn't have access to hearing aids. Technology now, you can link it to your laptop, your computer, and you have easy access to that and really learn how to channel their speaking abilities and emerge into the hearing society. Compared to my grandparents' time, if you couldn't hear and you don't have hearing aids, guess what? You're deaf, and that's that. And so that's why they are very passionate and they really, really value the culture. Deaf schools, there used to be so many across the country in many different states. And now it's changing over time where unfortunately they're starting to close because there's only a few students and they don't have enough to maintain those schools. And so all of the values that we embed in our cultures are lost. And we're starting to become territorial and become defensive with our cultures and our communities. And we really, really value them. And so to see other people who have that privilege, the capability of talking and being able to channel different avenues and technologies, and we look at them and say, you're not deaf. You're not valuing our community and our culture without understanding they're born with technology. Like my best friend here, for instance, you were born with technology and access to it. You can have hearing aids, and you've never really seen the other side where my grandparents came from. And so, how do we find the common ground? How do we meet in the middle? And so, I think oftentimes people have a little bit of bias in them. And that causes us to quickly judge others without removing those biases and hearing them out and allowing them to be who they are. And I think being friends with you, that's really opened my eyes to a whole new level and just understanding how we value our community, but we also can preserve that and really understand where you're coming from and welcoming everybody to the deaf community. It's hard to really explain that in the right way, but overall, oftentimes the deaf community looks and sees privileges that people have, and they have the capability of channeling that. So I think we need to remove our biases and grab the positive end of the stick and say, hey, that's awesome that you have those privileges and you're getting yourself in auditions and representing yourself as Sarah and being successful in your own career. And at the same time, you're representing us. You are one step ahead of us, but You can also pull us in instead of everyone starting arguments of people having different privileges where we should be meeting in the middle and coming up with solutions of how we can represent the deaf community and still allowing you to be who you are.
Yeah. And one thing you always told me that really stuck with me is you said, deaf does not define you. It's a part of who you are, but it doesn't define Sarah. And I want to be me. And I want to be who I am in my personality and show my vibes and everything within who I am. And I'm also deaf. It's a part of who I am. And that's what I want to represent because, at the end of the day, I am Sarah. And one thing I also will say, you said that I helped you, but you helped me find my needs, my strength as a deaf woman, and the accessibility I need in my life. You gave me that freedom to voice my needs. So that balance of understanding where each person is coming from and having that really good, deep discussion, which is not an easy discussion to have, but we're able to hold each other accountable and understand each other's perspective and where we're coming from. And this is the whole point of this podcast, really.
And for all you listeners out there, I want you to remember that I'm Carly and this is Sarah. And we are part of the deaf community, but we have our own personalities and not everybody in the deaf community has that thought process to grab the positive side of the stick. Not everyone has that and we do. So it's okay to be different. And again, we are individuals part of the big community. So our personalities are just very unique. And so for me to be able to have that open heart to heart discussions with you all the time, it really opens my eyes to a whole new level because I come from a very strong deaf community and seeing what you've gone through is just truly amazing.
Yeah, and for the listeners, I'm so excited to bring you guys in to join this conversation too. It's what makes this podcast so special. And now we're in this as a family. And it's just, yeah. Thank you, Chris, for that really empowering question and bringing that sticky topic to light. I've never really seen another person talk about this kind of thing. So you really opened it up.
And I remember we had a pretty in-depth conversation in the car one time. And I think we were talking about privileges that we had within this. And something was said, and we literally had like 15 minutes of silence because with this situation, it was so conflicted. We are two totally different deaf women who happen to be best friends. So we both kind of took that 15 minutes and said, okay, now what? What's the solution here? Because again, there was no right answer to everything. And just as long as you have that empathy and you're able to open up that discussion and just be authentic and be open to understanding each other's perspectives. Because after those 15 minutes, I was like, love you, Sarah. Let's go. Let's do this life together.
And recognize that we're only human. We make mistakes, it's a part of life. But it's how we own up to our mistakes. And that's reflective of who you are as a person. So we've learned so much and we're able to take that deep dive and talk about it. But I have a very deep question for you related with farting.
Okay.
We are going to change gears right now because we've been having a very deep discussion. I wanted to end with something a little bit lighthearted, right?
Okay. And that's farting. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So this is from Amanda from Colorado. And she asks, when you fart, are you ever concerned or insecure about people hearing it because you've never heard your own fart before?
Hmm. Well, thank you for that question, I guess. So, first of all, I think nobody should be insecure about their farts. I mean, come on, everyone farts, right? What kind of noise they make, I will never know, but it's a blessing that everyone farts too. But Concerned, insecure, that's probably not the right word for me. I am very self-aware with the noises that I make. Not everyone might have that, but it's the way that I was raised, I think, because again, I was raised in a deaf family, except for my sister. She is hearing. And my sister happens to be very sensitive with noise that people make in general, especially when it comes to eating. And I remember sometimes we eat dinner as a family. And I know that there are some table manners where everyone follows and they are taught, close your mouth when you're eating, don't eat with your mouth open, which is fine. So I'll close my mouth and eat, and somehow I'm still making noise. And my sister will slap me and say, Carly, stop making noise. And I'm like, again, I don't know what noise I'm making. I'm like, okay. And how do I not make noise? Because I can't hear myself. I can't. So I'm constantly getting lectured all the time about not making certain noises. And in general, I remember living in this house in Washington, D.C. I had a hearing roommate who lived in the basement and I lived upstairs. And one night that roommate came upstairs and said, "You're making a lot of noise." And I'm like, but again, with no explanation of what kind of noise I was making. So I was like, okay, well, um, okay, so what noise is not too loud? What noise is too loud? I became so self-aware. I was walking on my tiptoes. I was shutting cabinets very lightly and making sure they weren't slamming. And so I was just recognizing that I am very self-aware about the kind of noises that I make. And so I'm very careful. Is that loud or is that not polite? Should I apologize for that? Did they hear it? Did they not hear it? I don't know. And so my head is always running on that. So I think it's just me, Carly. I'm very self aware of the noises that I make. But farting, I'm not very insecure about that. Honey, everyone farts at the end of the day. But I wonder when, we go in public bathrooms in the stores or whatever, there's stalls all next to each other. They're so close to each other. So sometimes I'm like, do they hear me pee? How fun is that for hearing people? You have to sit in there and pee, but then you can hear everybody else around you peeing. I think that's really distracting, to be honest. I'm able just to focus on my own peeing, and that's just my part. So I'm just very like, oh, so is this loud or is it not loud? I have no idea. What about you?
I can hear my own farts. I can. But other people not really. I don't hear their farts. I smell it though, and that's not fun.
I think I'd prefer the noise and the smell, right?
I think so, yeah.
You think so?
Wait, no, I know so. But, I can hear it, but am I self-conscious about it or insecure? No, I'm not. Again, like you said, everyone farts. It's part of being human. We have bodily needs that need to be released. So,
So be it.
but you did mention that you're self-conscious about voicing. I mean, no, not voicing. You're self-conscious about noises. Me, I'm self-conscious about speaking. A lot of people have told me, "Sarah, you're talking too loud." Apparently, I have a loud voice, and I don't realize my tone fluctuates sometimes. And my biggest insecurity or what I'm self-conscious about is, am I talking too loud? Because I tend to have people tell me in the past, like, "Lower your voice." And that's my biggest pet peeve. I'm sorry I have a loud voice, but I can't help it. It's who I am.
I can't hear myself.
Right? I cannot hear myself exactly. So just accept it and move on. So farting, no, but other little things I do realize, yeah, I'm a little self-conscious of.
And one thing that I love for me, I catch myself doing, I'll ask my sister or I'll ask a hearing person and say, "Hey, what does that noise sound like?" And they'll explain, "Oh, well, it sounds like a bird chirping." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Then later I'm like, "Wait a minute. Well, what does that even sound like?" Again, the whole noise description is based on the visuals that I see. But I've never heard the sound, so I have no idea what a bird chirping sounds like. But I can see the visual of a bird moving its mouth up and down. I see it. But what sound does that make? I don't know. And I love how hearing people continue to explain, yeah, like this sounds like a toot. like a, or sometimes I'll be like, and I'm like, oh, okay, what does that sound like? I have no idea.
Oh, that's the best thing I've ever heard. Now, please, someone try to explain to Carly what farting sounds like in the comments below, please. But yeah, that's really an interesting question. It's a lighthearted question, but oh my God, people are curious about things like that.
And I have another question for you. We're not going to answer it today, but it does ask have you ever been curious or worried about the noises that you make while having sex?
Oh, I want to answer that question, but you guys will just have to wait until next week.
Next week. Next week's episode, we are going to be talking about our dating
Relationship.
life.
And Mom and Dad, I hope you are not watching.
See you next week.
Please subscribe to our podcast and don't forget to follow us on Instagram for all the updates at What the Deaf.
And email us if you guys have any new curious questions or if you want to talk about something that we just discussed today at questions@whatthedeaf.com.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.